Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. If you haven't done so already, please make sure to subscribe. I got an email from Heidi Allen Hendricks. Subject line, 7 temples, 17 million members, 170 nations. I saw this and I was like, what is this all about? So in the email, hi, Jared. Thank you so much for all you do. We are very grateful beneficiaries of your many, many labors. We pray blessings for you and your family. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yesterday, I was listening to President Oak's most recent conference talk again and noticed these numbers. Isn't it instructive and beautiful how he teaches us? And then she has the quote. So it looks like President Oaks is doing it now. And I do think that it's intentional. So this is his talk called Covenants and Responsibilities from this last General Conference. And it's at the very beginning of the talk. How does your church differ from others? My answer to this important question has varied as I have matured and as the church has grown. When I was born in Utah in 1832, our church membership was only about 700,000. So there's the first one. Clustered mostly in Utah and in nearby states. At that time, we had only 7 temples. Today, the membership of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints numbers more than 17 million in about 170 nations. As of this April 1st, we have 189 dedicated temples in many nations and 146 more in planning and construction. Okay, so, I guess, like, you're having this repetition of sevens. And we've already noticed this with President Nelson. He's done it so much that I have a spreadsheet for it. And I changed the name of the spreadsheet because I'm going to add President Oaks now. So now I just have it called Prophets Sevens. And it's mostly President Nelson until now. Here's the newest one. So I feel like something is definitely going on. I really do. As I was looking at this, I was thinking about how he said about 170 nations, and I wanted to look that up and see how many exactly. And I couldn't really do it. I went to the church's facts and statistics part of the website, and it doesn't have that number, or at least I wasn't able to find it. I know that you can go here, to these different regions, North America, South America, and I could count that up, but I wasn't feeling it today. Guys, it's the 4th of July when I'm recording this, and but I wanted to make this video today. So what I did is I went to Wikipedia, and it has this article called Membership Statistics of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And if it's accurate, I'm not sure that it's 100% accurate, but it has all the different countries and their membership, number of temples and stakes and all that stuff. So what I did is I copied this one right here. I copied and then pasted it onto a spreadsheet so as to quickly count it. I had to get rid of, like, on their table, they had territories like U.S. Virgin Islands, American Samoa. They had Hong Kong and stuff like that, which are not countries. So I took those out the best that I can. I think I took out all the territories, and all that's left is just countries. And so if this is accurate, then the church is in 183 countries, if this is accurate. So if that's the case, if it was anything other than 170, what I think is interesting is that he decided to choose 170. He could have said about 175, about 180, whatever, something like that. So when you see this repeated 4 times in the same paragraph, 700,000, 7 temples, 17 million, 170 nations, which, by the way, in my mind, if you're new to my channel, this number 17 has come up so many times, and I feel like it's related to 7, because what it is it's 7 plus 10. And for the millionth time, and I'm sorry for repeating this to everybody else, but 7 is viewed as a number of perfection, a number of perfection and completion. And then 10 is also a number of perfection and completion or wholeness. I actually had a conversation about this with Rabbi Gerfein I think it was last week, where we were talking about these numbers and the Jewish point of view. But essentially, you put those two together and you could have the idea of like, wow, completion. President Nelson is the 17th president of the church. And there was one conference in particular that 17 came up a lot. His main talk was 17 minutes and 17 seconds. He announced 17 temples to complete 100 that he himself has announced since becoming president of the church. He shared a poem that he had not shared in General Conference, and the space in between these two talks was 17 years. So, I mean, I don't know. All I can do is just keep track of this. There's another thing that stuck out to me. So if we hop over to President Nelson's talk, the very first thing that he says is, "My dear brothers and sisters, today is an historic day for President Dallin H. Oaks and me. It was 40 years ago on April 7th, and of course it was on the 7th. I really think that these two apostles, President Nelson being the senior apostle, these two apostles, these two members of the first presidency, I really think that they are very unique and important when it comes to the second coming." Anyway, it was 40 years ago on April 7th, 1984, when we were sustained to the quorum of the 12 apostles. Now, this is something that President Oaks also repeated on social media on June 3rd. This year marks 40 years since President Russell M. Nelson and I were both called, sustained, and set apart as apostles in the quorum of the 12. So they both recently pointed to the fact that they've been apostles for 40 years. And we've talked about the significance of 40, how, and this is another number I talked about with Rabbi Gerfein, how the way that he termed it, it's a number of like preparation, incubation of growing, reaching a certain stage, essentially. It's like a preparation time. And I also think it's a number, excuse me, it's a number of cleansing, because you think about basically in the scriptures, when you have like a 40, once the 40 is complete, then comes either like a ministry or then comes destruction. So there was the rain that caused the flood. It rained for 40 days and 40 nights, and then came the flood that cleansed the world. You have Israel that wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, and after the 40 years, then came destruction to the land of Canaan as Israel came and possessed the land. So you see where I'm going with this? So they're both repeating the fact that they've been apostles for 40 years. They came in together. This is something that President Hinckley pointed out. I'm not going to go to that quote right now, but when they became apostles, he's like, this is unusual. It's been, no, I guess I am. Let's go to quotes. No. Yeah, quotes, numbers. And we'll go down to 40. 40 years. Here we go. Presidents Nelson and Oaks. Gordon B. Hinckley. This was the the April 1984 General Conference, in a talk called "Small Acts Lead to Great Consequences" by President Gordon B. Hinckley, at the time second counselor in the first presidency. "We have enjoyed a conference that has been remarkable, I think, in a number of ways. The naming of two men to the Council of the 12 on one occasion is something that has not happened in a long while. The last time it happened was 40 years ago, when President Kimball and President Benson were so named." And those were also two other very key prophets or presidents of the church in the history of the church. So there's this weird thing, okay? And they're both pointing it out. They're pointing out these numbers, 7, 17, 40, right? And on top of that, I came across something I didn't notice before. So the first footnote in President Nelson's talk, after saying it was their 40-year anniversary, the footnote says, "I filled the vacancy of the Quorum of the 12 left by the January 11th, 1983 death of Elder LeGrand Richards, Elder Oaks filled that which was left by the January 11th, 1984 death of Mark E. Peterson. Now, I've already done a video about this. The circumstances of them being called to the apostleship was very unique, very interesting. You'll notice that these two apostles that preceded them died exactly 1 year apart. Exactly 1 year. That's because President Spencer W. Kimball, his health was failing. The one died, and then a couple conferences went by without him naming a new apostle. And then you had Elder LeGrand Richards, President Mark E. Peterson, who passed away. And so the upcoming conference, like a lot of people are like, what is going to happen? We've gotten all these conferences, like 2 conferences now with a vacancy, and now here's a second vacancy. Well, in a small moment of lucidity, he talked to President Hinckley. He's like, call Nelson and Oaks in that order. And then, he died sometime after that. And so because he was able to get that out, they were called, and they became apostles. Now, between this time, between January 11th, 1983 and January 11th, 1984, there was something that happened in downtown Salt Lake. There was a flood. It was the downtown, I don't know what it's called. It was a flood that year that affected downtown Salt Lake City. And this is a pretty dramatic image. You see the temple in the background and people trying to divert the flow of water, which it ended up going down State Street. And people were able to kayak. People were able to fish because there was fish in this water. They were able to fish on State Street, which is pretty crazy. But you have this flood excuse me, in between those 2 deaths. That's it. I mean, I don't know really what to say other than it feels like these numbers really highlight these 2 and the circumstances in which they were called. It really highlights them. And now President Nelson is about to turn 100 years old this year. We've talked about the potential significance of that. If he's the president of the second coming and he makes it into the millennium, that's the age at which you are changed in the twinkling of an eye. He may be the first one as like an example to the rest of the world, like, the new order of things, the new type of death. So let's see. I think that's it. There's one more thing. As I was looking at these charts right here, I was looking at this temple chart and how dramatic looking that is, because this is essentially an exponential curve right here. And it's kind of like that with the membership number right here. So 17,225,394, but this looks very much like an exponential curve. And an interesting thing that President Nelson said, this was November 1st, 2018, in a social media post. And as far as I know, this is the only place that he's said it. I'm glad that I went through that exercise of going through all his social media posts. I did like a series where I went year by year and I went through all of his posts. I have a playlist for it. And there were a lot of gems, including this one. He says, we're just at the exponential phase of growth. So that's what he's thinking, maybe what's been revealed to him. That's what the church seems to be doing, is preparing for exponential growth. And I think that explains the number of temples. I'm not going to pull it up now, but I ran the numbers because when you think about how many temples have been announced, but how the church growth has not really kept up with that per se, then you have to wonder, well, there's been a ratio throughout the history of the church of like the number of members to the number of temples. And now we have this like exploding number of temples that have been announced. Do we have enough people to fill them all or to staff them? And it turns out when you run the numbers, in order for the status quo to continue, the ratio of members to temples, the church would have to increase on the low end to 32 million. And on the high end, I think it was like 42 million or something like that. I have a spreadsheet. I'm not going to look it up right now. So we're seeing some pretty incredible things. I don't know that I've ever seen any other prophets or apostles do this kind of stuff with numbers like President Nelson and President Oaks does. But here's another example. Now we're going to have to start watching him too. I don't think he's done it on his social media. Somebody probably would have pointed it out by now. But just everyone be on the lookout. Be on the lookout for President Oaks. Who knows? Maybe the next one's going to be President Eyring. Maybe he's going to start dropping a bunch of 7s and 17s and 40s and things like that. But yeah, that's it. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.